When you are in the Arctic, you are alone. You are on your own. Once you're up there, you're up there. It's like you can't decide, well, I want to go home now. And I can remember saying to myself, I wonder what it's going to be like to be dead.
Torngat Mountains National Park, over 3,700 square miles of untouched wilderness in the subarctic region of northeastern Canada. The jagged peaks and iceberg-strewn waters of this Inuit homeland attract tourists from all over the world. Tourists like Matt Dyer, who has come here to experience its unspoiled beauty firsthand.
My name's Matt Dyer. I live in Easton, Maine, and I am a staff attorney. I was at that point in my life that I wanted to do something big. I was thinking, if I want to do something big, I'm going to do a trip. Been a member of Sierra Club for many years, and I started looking at trips that winter, and I saw an ad for a trip to the Torngat Mountain National Park in Canada, and I'm like, oh my, this place looks great.
Along for the trip, Rick Eisenberg, a stranger to Matt, but also someone looking to Torngat with great expectations.
I am a counselor and medical director at a psychological clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is actually my third career. I started out doing OBGYN and ultimately burned out in that and didn't know what I wanted to do. And that was the whole intent of this trip. The trip was really intended to be, for me, a vision quest. That point on Navchak Fjord in the Torngat Mountains, it is very remote. There are no roads, there are no trails. You're gonna get dropped in by a seaplane. That's just the kind of experience I was looking for. I read through the brochure and I just kind of read past the part that says, and we will be bringing electrical fences. Note to self, don't go any place where it says you need to have an electrical fence.
July 2013, Matt, Rick, and a small group of other tourists descend on Torngat via seaplane. The vast, rugged landscape is breathtaking.
We flew over that mountain chain, those Torngat Mountains, and I'm telling you, it was dead silence going over that mountain chain because it was so barren and rough.
We could see that there was nothing around. There was nothing.
Dr. Douglas Clark, an expert on wildlife-human conflicts in this area of northern Canada, knows just how isolated they are.
So the Torngat Mountains contain the highest mountains east of the Rockies in North America. There's no road. In fact, there's no road for hundreds of miles south of the park. Once you're dropped off in a place like that as a group, you may or may not have options for leaving at anything like the time or in the place that you want to leave. You're utterly isolated and you are entirely dependent on what you and your group have and what's in the environment around you, for good and for bad.
The group is dropped off on a remote shoreline. Leading the way are Rich Gross and Marta Chase, who will serve as guides during the 2-week hiking trip.
Here we are in the middle of absolutely nowhere, clearly hundreds of miles away from any other human beings. And it was a catch your breath kind of moment.
So we set up camp on the beach. We knew that there were polar bears and black bears up there. We had been told that we had these electric bear fences that was supposed to be effective deterrent.
I thought that will be safe, we'll be fine with electrical fences. And what I imagined was this 18-gauge wire and somebody gonna be carrying a car battery.
These fences of like white tape, plastic stakes, and they were powered by 2 D-cell batteries.
2 D-cell batteries. I looked at that, I said, come on, you've gotta be kidding. This is supposed to protect us from a polar bear.
But the theory was, as I was told, we were all told, that the bear would come up, touch the fence, and be shocked so bad it would run away. So we set up camp and spent the night. We figured the fence was gonna protect us.
Torngat Mountains, it's a fascinating place because it's an area where you've got caribou, black bears, wolves, and really big polar bears. Having an electric fence is a fabulous idea, but installing and maintaining a portable electric fence is really, really hard to do. They can work, but you don't want to rely on them to be a fortress around you that you can absolutely fully trust. They're designed as a deterrent. They're not designed to be an absolute bear stopper.
Next morning, we decided to do a day hike. And we went around, and then I hear one of the guys say, "Look, there's polar bears." I thought he was joking. We thought we'd be lucky if we saw one bear. Well, first morning, we look, and there's a mother polar bear with a cub going down the beach, just going along, being peaceful. They didn't even look at us. Talk about being put at ease. So we headed back to camp. But while we're doing it, I look up, and there is a big polar bear. I mean, a big one, looking at us. And then he came towards us.
The polar bear, the largest bear in the world and the Arctic's top predator, capable of weighing over 1,000 pounds, standing up to 11 feet tall when on their hind legs, and running 25 miles per hour on land. Polar bears spend much of their time in and around sea ice, hunting for seals.
So polar bears and people are mixing it up more and more often as the Arctic is warming up. And Horngats is a very, very different kind of park to visit, because in places where the ice melts out in springtime, polar bears are dumped ashore. They don't want to be there. They want to be out on the ice hunting seals. But when they lose that option, they're stuck on shore for a number of months until the ice freezes up again. If they haven't come ashore with sufficient fat reserves, that might motivate them to go and try to seek some opportunities for a meal, whatever that might look like when they're on shore.
So we had been taught, if you see a bear and he's interested in you, you group together to make yourself seem big.
Everybody jumps up, gets real big, bangs our hiking poles together, makes a lot of noise.
This is a really important thing to know about polar bears. They are curious, extremely curious, and they will approach. And as it draws closer, the opportunities for things to go wrong and the amount of time you have to respond just keeps dropping. A bear being curious is not an instantly life-threatening situation, but it is a situation in which you had better get your act together and prepare for things to, go bad. The group's next steps were absolutely correct. What they did was to make it really clear what they were, to come together so that they looked visually bigger as a group, making noise, making unnatural noises by banging aluminum poles. That's all a really good thing to be doing at this time. The thing is, though, that if that doesn't work, you run out of options very, very fast. And if you have no other options, the situation can go extremely bad.
I'll tell you, the bears do not look like what they look on the Coca-Cola cans. They're not cute and cuddly like you find them in the gift shop. These are fearsome beasts and absolutely enormous.
It was just like, oh. He kept coming.
I wanted a log cabin in the woods, so I had a cabin built. Just love being out in nature. I'm looking over both shoulders frequently. Every once in a while, I'll see one, and I'll quickly turn around and go the other way, because mothers will tend to be very aggressive if you get near them.
Palmer, Alaska, a small town 42 miles northeast of Anchorage in the Lazy Mountain area. Its rugged hiking trails and pristine wilderness are ideal for those who love nature and the outdoors. Karen Della Chapa moved here 36 years ago to live by herself in a small cabin in the woods.
When I moved to Alaska, I worked as a pilot for a while, doing charters along the North Slope. And now I'm retired from all of it, because I live alone. I have a small gun in the house, mainly if a person were to break into my house. I have much more fear of humans than animals, because most of the time the animals are more afraid of you. Living where I am, seeing wildlife is just an everyday occurrence. If it's a moose and bear, I'll run right back into the house. But porcupines, wolves, foxes, all kinds of birds. I love having them in my yard. We have a little garden pond with a little fountain, so they come and they drink out of it.
May 2011. Karen goes for an early morning walk behind her cabin, stopping along the way to maintain the heavily wooded area. It's work that she enjoys.
I've built a little trail that goes from one side of my house to the other, back through the woods. And I was just walking back there, kind of moving brush out of the way. When I walk out my door, I'm in the woods and I don't know what I might see. I might see a bear or I might see a moose. And so I'm always looking around very carefully and paying attention. I was leaning over with some clippers in my hands, reaching for something that was sticking out, just obstructing the path, and I was just cutting that off. And suddenly something hit me really hard from behind.
A large animal slams Karen to the ground and begins crushing her with its weight. She struggles, but is no match for such an aggressive attacker.
It was just so fast that I really just heard myself fall. You didn't have time to think. Didn't even know what happened, really. I didn't see anything. I didn't really hear anything. It just suddenly hit by something, just knocked me right over. I was laying on my right side on my face. I look up and I could just see the legs. I could see that it was the legs of a moose.
The moose, the largest and heaviest species in the deer family, growing up to 7 feet tall and weighing over 1,500 pounds. Although generally seen as docile, sedentary animals, moose can be aggressive and are capable of running up to 35 miles per hour. Dr. Jesse Coltrane is a wildlife biologist for the Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and has been studying these animals for over 20 years.
Moose are not predatory, they're herbivores. And so if you look at it from a behavioral standpoint, moose are the prey item for a lot of different species. And so when people have negative encounters with moose, it's a defensive reaction. You've entered my space bubble. You got too close to me, and I feel threatened, and I need to defend myself.
Just incredible force. Like a car hits you. It's instant. You don't have time to think. You don't play dead or anything like that. Just suddenly something hits you really hard and you're down.
It's very rare that we see moose actually kill people, but people have been seriously injured by moose. No! When they perceive something as a threat, they want to neutralize it. So they're going to charge it, knock it down, and they're going to stomp it until it stops moving.
You're laying down on the ground, gasping for breath, and I'm in a lot of pain. Every breath really hurt. I was hoping I could call 911 before I lost consciousness, but I was a little scared because I didn't know how badly I was hurt.
Think about a moose in the wild, and they're defending their calves from wolves. They're gonna stomp that wolf until it doesn't move anymore, and they're gonna use their hooves to do it. A moose is an ungulate, and they have basically cloven hooves. They're made out of hard keratin, and they come to points at the end. And it's those points that can really do some damage when they drive them down. A blow from a moose can not only create a significant impact that can break bones, but their hooves are sharp enough to actually lacerate your skin as well.
After stomping and kicking furiously, the moose finally relents, retreating to the woods. But Karen is badly hurt.
I was having trouble breathing. It was hard to take a deep breath. And when you can't breathe, other things don't bother you as much.
If you watch a moose stomping something, they're just kind of legs everywhere, aiming for center mass. Most people get kicked in the head, they get kicked in the back, they get kicked all over. We see injuries like broken ribs, broken collarbones, lots of head injuries.
I was just really concentrating on the fact that it was hard to breathe. And then I look up and I see the moose. It's turning around and it's coming back towards me.
In the far reaches of northeastern Canada, Matt, Rick, and their tour group are facing down a large polar bear heading right for them.
About 40 yards away, and it's coming toward us, just like this. Rich and Marta, the two leaders of the trip, carried flare guns, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I'd never handled or seen a flare gun before. The thought did occur to me, none of us have anything stronger than that?
It's the only weapon we had. And it wasn't even a weapon. I mean, it was a flare gun.
Visitors to any national park in Canada are not allowed to carry firearms, with the exception of the Inuit, who are hired as bear guards.
In polar bear country, you need a firearm. There is no way around this. You need to have an adequate caliber, and you need to have that firearm in trained hands. And in a national park, visitors typically can't carry firearms, and that's why in the Torngat Mountains, the park administration recommends that you hire a local Inuk bear guard who is equipped, experienced, and licensed to carry a firearm and use it if necessary.
So that bear, he got close enough that Rich, he shot that flare off. And that bear took off. Oh, thank God.
But the bear did not run very far.
He went up, kind of up on this ridge, and sat there and watched us.
Theory behind using deterrents like noisemakers and flares is that it scares the bear. And if there is no painful stimulus associated with the surprise, very, very quickly a bear is going to do what biologists call habituating. It's just not going to respond. Are they better than having nothing? Yes, but you probably don't want to rely a whole lot on them.
For the whole rest of the day, we went back to camp, but that bear sat there and watched us, seeing the size of this bear, and then looking at, you know, a 2.5 foot high fence with plastic stakes running off 2 D-cell batteries. So that, you're thinking that, but what else are you gonna do? You can't run, you can't hide, you stay there, and you convince yourself that it's gonna be okay.
We drank a lot of tea that afternoon, and we told each other stories, and we talked about ourselves. This is when we really got to know each other. And we went to bed that night with that polar bear a half a mile away, lying on that shelf, watching us, watching him. We went to bed in the safety of our electrical enclosure. Again, no sentry, no watch person.
I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I remember stepping over that fence. I look up and the bear is gone. He's gone. I felt so relieved. Thank friggin' God that thing left. And I went to sleep. It was around 2 in the morning. The moon had come out. And I woke up. I'm laying on my back in my sleeping bag, and I look up. And over the top of the tent, I see the shadow of a bear. Oh, boy. So I started screaming. Bear in the camp! Bear in the camp! The polar bear just started pummeling me. I was screaming. I was trying to protect my head. I knew what he was doing on some level, and he got me. He got my head in his mouth.
The bear is doing exactly what polar bears do. It's pounded its way into a structure to gain access to prey, and then it grabs the prey with its jaws and pulls it out. That's exactly what they do with seals, and right now the bear is treating that the way it would treat a seal. Bears typically grab by the head, because if you've got the head, you can anchor an animal and you can do a lot of damage to debilitate the animal very quickly. In a situation where a polar bear doesn't really know what a human is capable of, and it considers it kind of like it would another bear, which would be a bit of a baseline, the jaws are kind of a primary weapon system. So when bears fight, they use their jaws and they lock their jaws. So if you've got something by the head, you know it can't use its jaws on you.
Then he stood up and he just ripped me right through the wall of the tent. I felt like a champagne cork coming out of the bottle. Just boom.
The head of an adult polar bear is probably about the size of an average human torso. So there's a whole lot of muscle there, and that's where a long neck, big jaw gape, and a lot of neck musculature is gonna allow you to pull that, 60, 80, 100, 120-pound seal straight up and through the ice and out. So yeah, no trouble at all to pick a grown man up by the head and carry that person away.
We were all out of the tents in a flash, and I see Matt being dragged away by this enormous polar bear who had him by the head.
He starts running, dragging me. Off we went.
This bear, probably now that it's got something warm and bleeding in its mouth, and the bear is likely trying to get Matt somewhere where it can concentrate on finishing a meal, to be really blunt about it, and it wants to be undisturbed while it carries on.
People say you fought the bear. There was no fighting. There was no fight, okay? I could see everything. I was wide awake. The hair on its belly tinged with reddish, the feet going, and I'm getting dragged. The breath. The breath was so foul-smelling.
We were waking up into the worst possible nightmare. I never imagined, never in a million years would I have ever thought something as violent and tragic like this could happen on a trip. A bear attack?
An hour north of Anchorage, Alaska, after a brief retreat, the moose attacking Karen De La Chapa returns to trample her again.
I just see the hooves. I don't really see the rest of the body, and it jumps on me and does like a little dance on me and tromping on my back and side.
So moose can literally kick their legs in all different directions. Every single leg can go forward, backwards, sideways.
I'm a 105-pound, 5'2" woman against an 800 or 900-pound animal. It's not a fair fight. I'm not going to win. They move fast. They're extremely fast and heavy, and so it's such a tremendous force.
With the type of behavior that we see happening with this cow moose being this aggressive towards someone who is not doing anything aggressive towards this moose, it's highly probable that she has calves very close by, if not at her side. The most dangerous moose you're ever going to encounter is a cow with very young calves. From a moose perspective, anything and anyone is a threat to their calves if they get too close. Doesn't matter if it's a dog or a bear or a person. It's about being too close to my kids.
As the attack continues, Karen lies helpless under the moose's powerful stomps and kicks.
It kicked my head, and then suddenly it runs off. I figured she was satisfied, and I wasn't moving, so she probably figured she killed me. I'm in a lot of pain now. I was really having trouble breathing, and I knew I couldn't crawl to the house. I was hurting too bad, so I knew I needed to call an ambulance. I reached for my cell phone and called 911. And I said, I don't know if they'll be able to find me. I have a friend, Mark, and I gave him his phone number because he'll know where the trail is, because it's a trail behind my house. And I don't know what internal injuries I could have had. I felt I could be in trouble because of the pain to my chest. I remember being really glad that I could move everything, because that could have broken my back. And I was so afraid she was going to come back and hit me some more.
Deep in the Torngat Mountains of northeastern Canada, a large polar bear rips Matt Dyer from his tent and drags him into the darkness, where it continues the violent assault.
You're getting dragged along. Head just clamped in his mouth. I had no power, no ability to resist or fight back. I mean, you're just being dragged. You feel the pressure of the jaws on your head, and I could feel and hear bones cracking. Well, at that point, I knew that I was gonna die. I mean, there was absolutely no doubt about it. And I can remember a voice, my own voice, saying to myself, "You're gonna die now, you know." And my other self responds, "Yes, I know." And then I hear a whoosh, and I saw a flash of light.
Fortunately, the leaders of the trip were quick on the trigger. They had their flare guns, and they fired at the bear, like 3 volleys, and the bear stopped.
And that bear dropped me.
And then the bear turns around and comes back.
So the bear's curiosity in a situation like this is going to keep it driving it forward. And a bear will very, very quickly learn that a launched flare that doesn't burn its fur isn't something to be afraid of. So the effectiveness of that as a deterrent would be dropping like a stone. And that's a really serious potential turning point in this whole episode, because that bear starts coming back, and that means that their toolkit is now down one tool.
I could still hear that bear walking around on that pebbly beach. Psh, psh, psh. He was coming back. And I can remember laying there on the ground saying, "Go away, bear, go away, bear." I could hear them screaming. I could hear them screaming and hollering. And then I saw another one go off, another flare.
And now the bear runs and runs off into the twilight. We can't see where it went. And we wait. Is the bear gonna come back? It seemed like forever. And then we decided, okay, let's fan out, let's try and find him.
I could hear all them coming down. I could see the little headlamps.
It was a lot of ridges and gullies, and nobody knew quite where the bear had dropped Matt.
I tried to wave, you know, here I am, but I couldn't. I couldn't move. I was just laying there.
I found him. I found him lying in one of those gullies, covered with blood. I thought he was dead. I thought he was dead. And I remember him just rolling over and looking at me and saying, "My jaw is broken." But he was alive, he was awake. So I call the rest of the group to come.
They picked me up and hauled me off. They got me up to our campsite, and everything was just smashed. The fence was just laying there, sparks coming off it after that bear had come right through.
It was 2:30 in the morning. It was dark, it was cold, it was windy. So we erected a tent over Matt. It was remarkable how everybody just snapped into action. Marta was on the satellite phone trying to call for help. Rich was getting two of the other folks set up with flare guns, standing back to back, facing opposite directions, watching for bears. Everybody had a job, and it was my job to take care of Matt.
Rick was a doctor. Thank God.
It had been 15 years since I practiced medicine, and I'm a gynecologist. What do I know about trauma? I felt overwhelmed. Finding all of his wounds, trying to bandage them. I ran out of bandages in the first aid kit in seconds. And there we are, we're tearing up bandanas, tearing up shirts. The realization settled in pretty quickly as I was tending to Matt that this was a severely injured man.
After a brutal moose attack, an incapacitated and terrified Karen De La Chapa listens to the thud of the animal's hooves nearby. Responding to her 911 call, state troopers arrive on the scene.
The troopers came and they were talking to me and they were kind of checking me out. And then I heard her. I heard the thunder of hooves. And I remember yelling, "Don't let her get me, don't let her get me."
You just don't see this repeated type of defensive behavior from a moose, a cow moose in particular, unless she has calves. And so the behavior that you're seeing is completely normal.
Troopers were saying something and I'm yelling, and then I hear shots. And I knew they had shot her.
This was a really unfortunate situation for both Karen and the moose. It was a trooper's responsibility to ensure that everyone on scene was going to be safe. And really their only option at that point in time was to unfortunately put down that cow. And it does happen. It's pretty infrequent, but in Alaska, it's something that wildlife officials do have to deal with.
After that, the ambulance arrived. They started an IV and they put me on oxygen. And I was glad I was still alive because it could have killed me.
In the subarctic wilderness of Torngat Mountain National Park, Matt Dyer clings to life after being mauled by a polar bear. His injuries are extensive.
I didn't know what was wrong with me other than I was just busted up, as if kind of like getting hit by a truck.
The bear had really mangled his hands and his arms. He had an enormous gash in the side of his neck. I could see his windpipe, his trachea. And Matt had increasing difficulty breathing. He was oozing from 40 more different spots on his upper body, but no pumping blood vessel. The bear had not hit an artery anywhere. And I thought to myself, thank God. All I had was a first aid kit, and a pretty meager first aid kit at that. If he had had one pumping artery, I had nothing. I had nothing. It took an hour or so maybe to bandage all the wounds, and then we waited. So I crouched next to Matt for all this time and just talked to him. You're gonna be okay. I got this. You're surviving. You're still with us. And all he said over and over again was, thank you, thank you, thank you. While I'm giving him all these soothing, comforting, caring messages, my fear just grew and grew. I was terrified that I would do something wrong, that I would miss something. What if something happens and I can't handle it? In the back of my head, all my demons have been called forward. All of my childhood trauma, all of my medical trauma, all the things that I have seen in my career are flashing through my head with the message, you don't know what you're doing. You're going to miss something. You're going to make a mistake. And if this man survives, it will be despite you, not because of you. That haunted me. But I remember a Jewish prayer. And the message is, I look to the mountains from whence my help comes. I look to the mountains from whence my help comes. And that was a comfort. He told me afterwards, while he was so grateful to have had a physician on the trip, little did he know he had a rusty gynecologist. What meant the most to him, what he remembered the most, was me holding his hand and talking to him.
The people I was with, they would come in one at a time into the tent, you know, to spell each other, and they'd talk to me and ask me, you know, just very kind. And I'll never forget that.
It was a very powerful, very spiritual time.
Tour guide Marta eventually reaches the Royal Canadian Mounted Police via sat phone. They will dispatch a helicopter rescue, but given the group's remote location, it will be hours before help arrives.
You can't move or anything, but my mind is fully functional. I can remember I could hear the camp stove start up. I could smell coffee. Oh my God, I wanted a cup of coffee so bad. I also wanted a cigarette. I hadn't smoked in 15 years, but for whatever reason, if I could just have a coffee and a cigarette right now, that would be great. But of course I couldn't.
After the initial enormous adrenaline rush, the reality of the situation settles in. It's quiet and it's cold. And here we are, this little speck in the middle of this enormous, enormous wilderness. No other human being around for hundreds of miles. No place to run. There was no place to run. So you just got to do the job that's in front of you. But the knowledge that there are other bears roaming around, probably just as hungry and just as desperate as the poor bear that came after us.
At this point, the group doesn't know where the bear is after it's dropped Matt and then left for the second time. You have to not lose sight of the fact there might be other bears around that you're going to have to worry about at some point. There are documented cases where polar bears have injured multiple people in a group. There's this saying, it's not the bear in front of you have to worry about, it's the bear behind you.
It was absolutely terrifying. And we had 3 flares left. That's it. Between the 2 people who were standing guard, each with a flare gun, 3 flares left. I mean, it took 5 to scare off that bear that one time. We felt completely defenseless. Completely defenseless.
For the next 6 hours, the group takes turns tending to Matt and keeping watch around the perimeter of the camp.
At some point, I hear a helicopter.
It's like the cavalry coming over the hill. The helicopter flying maybe 15 feet above the ground.
The sun had come out. I think that's what they were waiting for. The helicopters couldn't get in to get us because the weather was so bad.
Fortunately, the helicopter brought a bear guard. So they had a man with a rifle who, as soon as he landed, started pointing out all the polar bears in the vicinity. Over there, a mile away, that's not a white rock, that's a polar bear. And that one over there, you see him in the distance? That's a polar bear. And then he points at the route we were planning to take into the mountains. He says, yep, there's 2 right there. We thought, oh, great. We didn't realize the degree to which we were being watched. It was terrifying. It was shocking. And I counted 16 polar bears right in the vicinity of our camp, right in the vicinity of our camp.
This could have been considerably worse for the group if they had had multiple bears to deal with, because you're in a place where a whole population of polar bears is on shore because of seasonal sea ice melt. That's not an inconceivable situation. And, you know, frankly, that's why that national park recommends that visitors come in with armed bear guards.
We were literally surrounded by polar bears, and we didn't have a clue. We were being hunted. Hunted. And we didn't know.
Beaten down from a moose attack, Karen is rushed to a hospital in nearby Anchorage.
They took me right to the emergency room. I had a big bruise on my leg, and my whole right side was black and blue. And I had a big bruise in the back of my head and a hoof mark on my forehead, and my collarbone was broken. I still don't know how many ribs were broken.
Karen actually was pretty lucky. We've seen other injuries issued by moose that have caused, severe head injuries and even a couple fatalities. In any given year in Alaska, we typically have more people injured by moose than even brown or black bears. And luckily, negative wildlife encounters with these species, you can count on one hand typically. So it's still very uncommon.
Karen leaves the hospital the next day and returns home to make a full recovery.
A couple days later, I was watching the news and I saw the troopers take 2 calves out of my neighbor's yard. They were the calves from the moose that attacked me. Only one of the calves survived. One of them died immediately. They felt that the mother that stomped on me was probably not healthy, and that may be one of the reasons she was so angry, because she wasn't healthy and she probably didn't have enough milk to feed both babies, and so the one was so undernourished it didn't make it.
It's not surprising that they found calves. This attack happened in the spring, and cows are very, very defensive. So when Karen went into her backyard, she unknowingly provoked an attack. And the only thing she did was get too close.
A week later, I went to their shelter for the moose. I got to see all the baby moose. They're so cute. They have great big baby bottle, and you hold it real close to their mouth, and they suck so hard that it was like almost sucking my whole hand in its mouth. It was really cute. And they did rehabilitate it or raise it till it was able to be released, and it's probably out there now.
The best way to avoid a moose attack is to be very cognizant of your surroundings. If you do happen to see a moose, give it a lot of space. Refrain from the impulse to take a selfie or to get closer. So we tell people don't run from bears, but definitely run from a moose. It's not a predatory animal. You're not going to trigger some kind of predatory response. If you can't get away, get something substantial between you and that moose, so a vehicle or a tree or a building. If the moose does catch up with you and make contact and knocks you to the ground, then protect your head and your vital organs by rolling up in a ball and put your hands over your head if you can, and stay down.
It took me several years to really want to walk around my trail. And even now, sometimes I'm a little nervous when I walk around that little trail. I'm really looking over both shoulders. I think it's just that memory, it's still there, especially when I walk by the exact place where it happened. Yeah, it sort of sticks with me.
In Torngat National Park, the emergency medical team rushes to stabilize Matt for transport.
We load Matt onto the helicopter, and of course, the doctor goes with his patient. The rest of the group had to wait. They stayed there. They stayed there 12 hours waiting for a fishing boat to come pick them up.
Matt and Rick make the 20-hour journey to Montreal General Hospital, stopping at medical facilities along the way in order to keep him alive.
And the next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital, and my wife, there she was. And I couldn't say anything. I couldn't, because, you know, you're right, full of tubes and everything. I had a broken jaw. This hand had been crushed. My neck, some of the vertebrae were broken. They put a hole in my throat and put a tube out. And the people on the trip, they had all come to see me, and they stayed for a little while. And I remember that. I remember seeing them, all of them, standing down the end of the bed.
I remember visiting Matt in the ICU. He's bandaged from head to foot. He looks like a mummy. He's got casts on both arms. He can't talk. And his eyes are sparkling, and his sense of humor is radiating, even though he's in the middle of the intensive care unit 2 days after having gotten attacked by a bear. And with one finger sticking out of the cast, he's pointing at a letter chart, and I am reading as he's pointing. He writes, "You saved my life." We have a bond like you cannot believe at this point. It's a trauma bond, but I feel deeply connected to that man. The next thing he spelled out was, "Will you take me breakdancing?" Like, come on. And then, "Will you come for a lobster bake?"
I don't know if we hadn't had Rick there, whether I would have made it. I really don't. If this is what you went to medical school for, well, I'd pay your student loans if I could. But I can't.
The important things to remember from this situation are that this was normal polar bear behavior at a normal time of year. It is perfectly normal for polar bears to seek to prey on people. Doesn't happen every day, doesn't happen inevitably, but it is part of their normal suite of behaviors. And it's incumbent on us not to put ourselves in situations where bears are given an opportunity to make that choice.
There is no doubt in my mind that that bear was hanging around. He was interested in us, very interested, as a source of food. And that, you know what? That's okay. That's what a polar bear does. It's the bear, and it's the moon, and then the stars, and those stars are one for every one of my companions on that trip that helped me. And it was all part of my healing process.
We live on this planet and we think we got it. We're the top of the food chain. We're the humans. We run this show. And you go to a place like this and you realize, no. We're just tiny little specks. And Mother Nature holds the power. And this one animal bringing the force and power of Mother Nature directly into my lap, I don't think I'll ever look at the world the same way. It was a very humbling experience.